welcome back to another episode of the Secular Roundtable Podcast. You believe what? Religion is the cesspool of human ignorance. Are you fucking kidding me? Come back here, little corner, pray like 10 more times and come back when you're ready to be rational. Hi, we are live once again, and we are Reason, religiously educated atheists, secularists, and other non-theists, aka the Secular Round Table. Today we have a very special episode planned for you. We're going to be answering all of your questions, and we know we've got so many over on the social media websites. We're also going to go ahead and do about a 10-minute discussion about the anti-vaccination movement, since it's been pretty prevalent in recent news. So basically, let's kind of go over this thing really quickly now. We know that there was a false study that was put out, what was it, 80s, 90s, somewhere in there, where a guy linked autism to these vaccinations. And basically, like every other superstitious belief, it has somehow been pervasive and manipulated its way back into the mainstream. And, you know, now that we have basically put the stomp down on most of these diseases like measles and mumps and things like that, and now that we're actually protected against those, we've got more people becoming less accepting of this science and opting out of these vaccinations. So Jenny McCarthy and Oprah made it popular, Dieter says.
Well, I guess I'll start off with a spill about the anti-vax movement. Basically, how I feel about the anti-vax movement is like they're not only putting their child in danger, but they're also putting other kids in danger. Because it's not like they're adults that are the primary people that are of concern, or for the are getting sick in general because of unvaccinated kids, or kids that have not been vaccinated properly. That's another key thing. A lot of people like to say, well, hey, this person was vaccinated. Well, you know, especially with the latest measles outbreak, if you don't, if you don't get your booster shots or whatnot, if you don't get the correct schedule, of your measles shots, then you could possibly, contract it later. But that's why, we have redundant safeties. Like, everybody needs to be vaccinated. That way, if somebody does get sick, they're not going to risk other people getting sick because they either can't get vaccinated or whatnot. But the ones that are getting sick right now are children that either are too young to get the vaccinations, or they're children who have immune systems that are too compromised in order for them to get them. So it's not like it's a harmless thing to choose not to vaccinate your kids. It's not like it's going to be a solitary thing if your kid gets sick with the measles or something like that. It's going to be spread to children that cannot yet get the vaccination, or have been not up to date on their vaccination. So that's pretty much how I feel about it. If you don't vaccinate your kids, then you're not only putting your kid at risk, but you're also putting other kids at risk.
The thing G is kind of talking about is the concept of herd immunity. Individuals can develop their own immunity to various diseases or whatever, but the important thing is we live in a community now, a very large community, with people that come in and out of the country, people that mix together in different avenues. So people are going to interact with each other and spread germs. What herd immunity does is it prevents, or I guess it generates a saturation point in which most people are immune to a given disease. So there'll always be some low percentage of people that have whatever sickness, unless we completely eradicate it. But having a herd immunity means that most people won't have it, so that the people that can't be vaccinated, or the people that are just susceptible to whatever disease for whatever reason, they won't get it because most of society doesn't have it. We need a herd immunity for things like measles, mumps, whooping cough, We have a herd immunity for smallpox and polio, and no one seems to remember that time period when those diseases destroyed societies. But they did, so we did something about it. Now measles and some other lesser known sicknesses are coming back because the herd immunity is compromised. And the numbers are getting to the point, it's not a huge number of people, but once herd immunity starts going down, it's going to be kind of a dangerous place to have children. Because before you get up to a certain age, I think it's 3, but I don't have kids, so I never really thought about it. They can't be vaccinated. Because if you do, it might actually give them the literal sickness or a different kind of reaction to it. So they might actually die. These are the people that we're trying to protect. And I kind of understand the mentality of not wanting to vaccinate your kid. I understand it, but it's wrong. It's kind of mentality that this is something that you are physically doing to your child. Like, you are getting them vaccinated. That is your choice. And if something happens to them because of that choice, it is your fault. Now, I would disagree with the response, but the counter to this is if they get sick from whatever disorder, that's like nature's fault. It's indirectly caused by me. So it's easier mentally to protect yourself if something isn't entirely your fault. But that comes from ignorance. Because if you don't vaccinate your kid, it actually is your fault for the kid getting sick. But that's hard to convince people of when all the information that's being pumped into these people's heads is misinformation. It's really scary because people don't even understand how vaccines work. People don't understand there's different types of vaccines. People don't understand that the formula for vaccines changes. There's a huge thing about mercury, and ignoring for the fact that that is a different form of mercury that isn't even that, I don't think it's dangerous at all, except in high concentrations, but it's not even used anymore. So people are just throwing around these things as if they're silver bullets against the vaccination community, but it's just misinformation, and it's the only thing they have. So parents of the world that are listening to this, shut up and get your kids vaccinated, because you are doing significantly more harm than good, and the only justification you have is lying to yourself. That's what I have to say about the anti-vaccination movement.
All right, yeah, I'll throw in my piece here. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ignorance and misinformation that goes around about this, and like you were saying, there's a difference between organic mercury and environmental mercury, but people don't understand that. They just think, oh, it's a chemical, it's poisonous, it's toxic, it can build up in your system and all this, and people just aren't informed, and that's kind of why we need to discuss this. We need to get the word out and and let people know that it's okay, obviously. The main thing that we all hear about is this whole autism thing, ever since Andrew Wakefield published his paper back in the late 90s, and that gets a lot of the attention from the Jenny McCarthy's of the world and all that. But it's not, and there's been no link found between autism and vaccines whatsoever. They've tried reproducing his results, and they have not done so. And he rescinded his work, and he was, basically barred from doing any more scientific research and things of that nature. So it's completely debunked at this point. But there's other people out there who have other reasons for not vaccinating. Not that any of them are any better, but I think we tend to focus on this autism thing a lot, and that might throw people off because that's not the reason that they choose not to vaccinate. There's these sometimes they call themselves like crunchy moms. They're like the organic and all natural and all this stuff, and they don't want to they don't want to put quote unquote poison or toxins into their kids' bodies or what have you, because they think that modern medicine is poisonous and all this and unnecessary. You have there's people that say, oh, well, the reason these diseases are on the decline is because we're more hygienic. We wash our hands more. We have clean drinking water and all this stuff. And, there's people that think that it's a government conspiracy to try to control us. And, so there's people out there, like I said, none of these reasons are any better, but people cling on to these things just that they hear or whatever, or they hear things anecdotally. We had Rand Paul the other day saying, oh, well, I've heard stories of kids who, came down with mental illness after vaccinations, and I've even personally heard secondhand accounts of these things. Obviously, I don't put any stock into them because, correlation is not causation, and plus it's just an anecdote. You have no idea if that story is even true, just hearing it from a friend of a friend or whatever. So, for like measles, I've heard the number out there that for herd immunity to be effective, we need to have 90% vaccination. And with this anti-vax movement, it's kind of dwindling. It's going down and down. So that's why we really got to attack this and be on the offensive and make sure people are vaccinating. And everyone's looking at this Disney World incident as well. That's grabbing all the headlines. But this has kind of been ongoing for a while now, and in different areas. And for different reasons, it's not just it's not a partisan divide, it's not a political divide, it's not necessarily a religious divide. It's just people are anti-science, or they're ignorant, they're misinformed, and it doesn't really correlate necessarily to one thing or another. So I mean, you've got a broad spectrum of people here who are choosing not to vaccinate, and we really need to address this issue. Like in California, I saw a map where for some reason, like the richer areas, in the more well-off areas, were more likely to not be vaccinating. They had more vaccine exemptions for their kids in schools. And as you went down the coast to the more poorer areas and things of that nature, the vaccination rate went up. So it was like you had these, rich elites that were deciding not to vaccinate for whatever reason. So, basically, I can understand if people don't want to stick exactly to the vaccination schedule, or if they have concerns about the ingredients in vaccines and they want to look into that and make sure they're not putting anything bad into their kids' bodies. I can understand those concerns, but we need to, help people understand that there isn't anything really to be concerned about. And then also, we can understand, too, that there's different levels of disease. Something like measles or smallpox, which is eradicated, is different from like the chicken pox. But at the same time, we should be preventing any diseases that we can. They can cause sicknesses and hospitalizations, which cost our economy, and they cause suffering. We want to be able to prevent that. So even something like chicken pox, it may not usually be deadly, but if we can prevent it, we should. And I have people out there saying like, oh, we shouldn't be forced to give the chicken pox vaccine, or people arguing that because the chicken pox vaccine is being given now, that shingles cases are increasing, and that's when adults have the chickenpox virus that's latent in their system from when they were children and they had the infection or the disease, and then it pops up later in adulthood as shingles. And basically the idea is that if they're exposed to kids that have chickenpox, that'll kind of boost up their immunity and they won't get shingles. But there's also a vaccination against shingles. So that can help allay that. And then also, you have to understand that these things will just take time. Once we get the chickenpox vaccine out over, several years, several decades, then we won't have to worry about people having shingles because they will never have had chickenpox to begin with. So even something like that, I think people should be getting vaccinated against. So I'll go ahead and leave it open for anybody else that wants to put in their opinion on this.
Yeah, I think everything that you guys have said is right. I do think it's important to remember the reasons that people might sympathize with these views. I have relatives who are kind of on the fence and that sort of thing. And it is, everybody's just trying to do the best for their kids, right? And we all understand that. But yeah, the problem is that nobody wants to trust big pharmaceutical companies, right? I mean, they're already kind of boogeymen to a lot of people, especially in the United States where you have more libertarian type ideologies and things like that. They never want to trust big pharma, right? And I can sympathize with that. I don't really want to trust big pharma either. But yeah, the problem is you just have to look at the actual evidence, the actual statistics, and the truth is there are risks associated with these vaccines, but those risks are so much less statistically likely than the risks of not being vaccinated at all. More deaths are caused by people getting the measles than deaths being caused by people having these vaccines. And even when you look at the side effects, they look pretty serious. It says it can cause seizures and stuff like that. Well, the fact is that in infants and toddlers, seizures are actually not all that common, this particular type of seizure. So the vaccines are not nearly as life-threatening as they seem to be, and it is, I think, people paying a lot of attention to anecdotal evidence. And yeah, I just want to piggyback on and emphasize the idea that any vaccine is connected to autism is absolutely ludicrous, false. It's what my wife, it's her field, it's her profession. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. So please, nobody believe that. I don't know that many people do anymore, but yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that autism and vaccines are not a thing.
One thing I wanted to add, while I eat this banana, apparently, is this is just something that I never really thought about until it specifically pointed out to me. It's like, why is autism so much scarier than the possibility of death? And I think that actually falls into the same kind of category I was talking about earlier, that it's like, autism would be a condition you have to deal with basically for the rest of the kid's life. It could be incredibly intense, or it could be super mild and not really life impactful. But it's something you'd have to deal with, and you did it. But other than that, it's just autism. Like, I don't know why people are so afraid of autism.
I don't know if you guys ever watched Penn and Teller Bullshit, but they had this really great episode. You know, it's a really old show. I mean, this was back when I was a kid, but they had this really old episode about, you know, Penn had his vaccine wall, and he put it up over 100 little statues, and, you know, he kicked one out, and that was the 1 in 100 that was autistic. And then they threw balls at these little figures, and Penn's balls bounced off of his vaccine wall, and all of Teller's balls knocked the children down. So at the end of the day, like, the non-vaccinated children had, like, you know, 20 kids left standing. And that's one of the things. People seem to draw this connection. Now, we've talked about this fallacy before, post hoc ergo propter hoc. You know, a lot of people, I actually have a friend who went and had her kid have some kind of ear canal surgery or something for, what is it, earaches. And she then the kid turned out to be autism. Now, she made claims that the kid was talking and all before that, and I don't know how true that is. You know, it's anecdotal, it's unfalsifiable, but I don't personally think that vaccines cause autism. And even if they did cause autism, what is autism? Because I think that there is a confusion between autism and Down syndrome. So just to put this out there, I'm autistic. So I'm doing pretty fucking okay. And I'm autistic. And if I have to live the way I live with vaccines, I would accept that. So even if vaccines were linked to autism, it's still the lesser of two evils. Because if we were not vaccinated, you know, we live in a time where we don't have to worry about things like polio, but we had a president who couldn't even stand up years ago when polio was ravaging the United States. Also, I wanted to talk about the mercury real quick, because the mercury, as I understand it, used to be in the vaccines to help increase the shelf life. As Dieter mentions, it wasn't even a harmful form of the mercury, and it was so minuscule that it didn't make a difference. And you know what happened? They took it out to try to appease these anti-vaxxers, and then what did they do? They just pointed to something else. Oh, well, this thing is now bad in there. So it seems like they just want to go against the grain no matter what. Hold on, Dieter. I wanted to say one last piece here. I wanted to talk about the evolving diseases. So you guys talked about herd immunity, but there's another thing that's involved, is that when you don't get your child vaccinated, and they end up contracting, just say measles, for example. Every person that contracts measles gives that disease another chance to evolve to be able to affect the people that are already vaccinated. That's what you need to understand. So people that say, well, my child is not vaccinated and it doesn't affect you, it does, because if your child contracts that disease, then it evolves or it changes or forms a new strand or anything like that, and my child gets it and my child dies, then it's ultimately your fault. Go, Dieter.
No, the only thing I wanted to add was the thing about removing the mercury. I'm pretty sure it made it more expensive because they had to change the formula, but it did make it have a shorter shelf life, so they had to make more of it. So it screwed things up having to change the formula, but they did it to appease people, and they're still not happy.
Yeah, because then they just pointed to another ingredient. We're like, hey, what about that ingredient? Like, if you can't pronounce the ingredient, like, really?
No, that is a fallacy, because, like, there's a thing on the internet that shows, like, the ingredients in blueberries, and I can't pronounce a damn thing that's in a blueberry. Just because we have long, complicated names for chemicals doesn't mean they're dangerous.
That's true, but what I'm saying, I was using the flip side of it, which is if they can't pronounce the ingredient and they don't even know what the ingredient does, you can't point to the ingredient and say that it's harmful.
Okay.
You're demonstrating that you don't even know science if you're going against the vaccine in the first place, but then to go against the ingredient. So we already know that they're ignorant of the vaccine. So if you guys didn't have anything else to say about vaccines, we'll nip it in the bud and go on into these questions. Questions? Yay, questions! Guys, we got a lot of freaking questions to answer. I don't know how you want to handle this, but we'll just go ahead and get started. Over on IG, I've got Chase Bacon 2. He asks, what do you think about solipsism, at least in terms of epistemology? Who wants it? Yeah, go ahead, Dieter.
It's bullshit. It's basically admitting you don't have an argument, so you just have to go to the bare minimum just to keep yourself talking. It's like you don't have a structured argument, so you have to be like, I don't have evidence for what I'm arguing, but that just means that my belief system is needed so you can have evidence. Like, it's just moving backwards. So my response always for anyone that brings up solipsism, or hard solipsism, or the brain in the vat analogy, or anything having to do with presuppositional apologetics, is it doesn't matter. Because in whatever magical universe you and I live in, science works, and your beliefs don't.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. I have no use for solipsism whatsoever. I pretty much like to position it as presuppositionalism and solipsism are kind of the last refuge of people trying to hide their God. I mean, they've gone beyond hiding their God in on a mountain or in a cave or in the heavens or beyond the Earth's atmosphere or whatever. I mean, there's nowhere else to go. I mean, you're hiding it and basically saying like, well, we can't know that we don't know, or we can't know what we know is true. Like, if you're just gonna start like baseline philosophy, like we can't know anything, then I have no use debating you, because what's the point? I mean, anything goes. I mean, and like you were saying, even if we live in the Matrix, even if we're living in a hologram, like we can still know what works in what we at least perceive as being real. You can't say that science doesn't work in our quote unquote reality. So just because you can't say with 100% certainty that it's true or that it actually exists, like it doesn't matter. It's still relevant. We can still, test and observe and know that at least what we perceive to be true is true. So yeah, I have absolutely no use for solipsism whatsoever.
Yeah, I think along similar lines. In my philosophy education, the skeptical hypothesis is always one of the first things that you have to talk about, right? Because if you don't tackle the skeptical hypothesis, then everything you're going to talk about for your entire philosophy education is going to be useless. So philosophers have a lot of motivation to try and get past this idea, and I think that they do a pretty good job in general. So it eventually started with René Descartes, right? I mean, he was the first person to popularize it, and his meditations where he said, yeah, cogito ergo sum, right? I think, therefore I am, meaning that's the only thing that I can actually know. And then he took it to some unfortunate places where God exists, so blah, blah, blah. But apart from that, I think the skeptical hypothesis is countered by a useful philosophical idea, and I can't remember where it came from, but I really like it. It's called the principle of conceptual contrast. And essentially what that means is that the only way that any term can have meaning in our language, or in any language, is if there is a contrast to it, right? So, for instance, being asleep doesn't mean anything to anyone if we don't know what it's like to be awake, right? So this applies very directly to the skeptical hypothesis. If we are just brains and vats, we don't know anything else, so that can't have any sort of logical implications whatsoever, because there's nothing to contrast it to. The type of existence that we have is the only type that we can understand, so if there's no conceptual contrast, then yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be said about it, there's nothing to be known. So epistemologically, it's strictly useless.
So basically, to put everything of what they just said in layman's terms, if you can't know that you're not a brain in a vat, then it doesn't matter anyway. If this existence is all you know, and your five senses, including the other ones that we know that you have, such as the ability to sense temperature, blah blah blah. I'm just going with the five here to keep it simple. Is all you know, and you can't prove that there is any other existence outside of this brain in the vat, then this is the only one that matters, and it's the only one that is relevant because you're experiencing it. Now, as Brendan mentioned, we do have science, which is an objective tool to show that not only what we're experiencing subjective, what we perceive subjectively, is relevant, but we can show that other people are experiencing it as well. It's a cool thing to think about, but you can't really take this thing seriously. You know, it's cool to sit around and think, hey, what if everything that I see is only relevant to me? But it shouldn't really go any farther beyond that, and you shouldn't let it affect your worldview or core beliefs, because this world is all you know. Next.
I'd kind of like to jump in here.
Go ahead.
Well, as far as solipsism goes and everything like that, I really don't see the point in the argument. Like for somebody to come in and say, well, you don't know if this reality is even the real one or something, or how do you know you're not a brain in a vat? It's like, okay, well, how in the world do you know? How do you know we're not? Because you got a book that tells you you're not? I mean, I really don't see the use in the argument itself as other than aha, you don't know. It's sort of like an up on the high horse kind of deal. You know, because, you know, if I don't know if I'm a brain in a vat, then you don't know if you're a brain in the vat. And if we both don't know that we're brains in a vat, then it seems like we're on a level playing field to me. I mean, maybe that's just me. If I'm wrong and you guys know the actual purpose to this argument, please enlighten me. I'd like to learn.
That's actually exactly the argument that I returned when this was presented to me. This is what happens when you join random Google Hangouts at like 9 at night on like a weekend. It was terrible. They countered everything I said with, but this is a guy that thinks he's a brain in a vat. And no matter how many times I repeated, no, I don't actually think that, but you can't prove that you're not one either. So let's stop talking about it and actually have a discussion. But it didn't matter because it basically is what they assume as a perfect silver bullet, so there's no point in talking to them after that. They're done talking to you. Very sad.
I think it just kind of stems from, because you can kind of have this experience where, you know, your consciousness and let's just go with your brain are two separate entities within the entity. For example, I know Dieter's ready to argue this one, but basically, sometimes you can live your life and kind of like go through autopilot, if that makes any sense. Like you can be driving along and like, hey, did I stop at that stop sign? You can have experiences like that. And if people can start to think that their brain and their consciousness are two separate things, which they're not, they're intrinsically tied together, we know this, but they may go on and think, hey, well, what if I am a brain in a vat? But as you guys, I think we just over-nailed that. That was overkill of why solipsism is not relevant. Cool thing to think about, especially if you're high. Next. What is more important? This is from Liam_Daniels. What is more important, proving climate change deniers wrong or proving creationists wrong? Let me just go ahead and say before you guys take it, I think we've already proved both of them wrong, but go ahead.
I talk the loudest, apparently. So, creationism in and of itself doesn't actually seem that dangerous, because it's kind of rolled back if you just believe in creationism and then accept evolution, accept medicine, accept everything else, then you're incorrect, or rather, you have no reason to believe that, but that by itself may not actually have that much impact. And that seems like a conversation to basically convince them otherwise. So that could be dealt with on an individual basis, but climate deniers are actively harming our lives, the planet, and the future. So that seems way more relevant. And honestly, it doesn't really, I don't particularly care about proving it to people. I just want to prove it to the people that actually have the money to make changes. And the people that have, like, the ability to change laws to make things actually better. Those people need convincing. Or to be in jail. Either one, really.
As far as I go, I think it's far more important to convince people that climate change is actually happening than to address creationism. Unfortunately, I personally feel that it's a lot easier to actually demonstrate that creationism, especially biblical creationism, isn't true. Climate change, climate science is a lot more complicated and involved, and the data is a lot more difficult to explain to people. And you also have the part of where people might accept that the climate is changing or the planet is warming, but they just don't accept that humans are at least contributing to that or accelerating it, which is kind of the crux of the argument, because if we're not having any impact, then we can't change anything. And while you have the church, obviously, that has an interest in keeping creationism alive, that's not nearly the same kind of opposition you have in, like, the energy, the oil, the coal industries fighting against, climate science and putting out their own counter, arguments, if you will, and false information and whatnot. I mean, there's no doubt that, obviously, we all have to live on this planet, and if we can't sustain this planet, then we're all pretty much screwed. If you have people thinking that humans rode on dinosaurs a few thousand years ago, it's really silly, but I don't see the threat there. I mean, obviously, if I had to pick one, I would definitely choose to address climate science, but I don't have to do that, so I can address both of them and try to educate people on both of them. But if I had to prioritize, definitely climate science.
Just to provide a counterpoint here, I'm not sure where I stand. I'm not sure which I think is more important. However, I do think that there's cause to put creationism at least in the running. And here's my reasoning. The epistemological theories, the philosophies that people hold to believe in those two things can be quite separate. So what I mean by that is a person can still believe in evidence and believe in science and come to the conclusion that global warming or climate change is not being caused by people, right? It's bad science. They shouldn't come to that conclusion, but they can, and at least they're looking at evidence, and at least they're using a sound basis somewhere, right? But for creationism, that has to be an abject just denial of evidence. Right? You have to just believe something, just to believe it hard enough and make it true. You know what I mean? So it could be, I think that attitude is more dangerous than two people looking at a set of data and coming to different conclusions. So maybe creationism is more of a problem just because of the underlying attitudes and epistemological theories.
Well, I guess it's my turn. And I've been thinking about it as I've been listening to you guys, and I can't help but to think that a good way to combat the climate change, the opposition to it, is to attack creationism. Because if we can shatter that foundation in the Bible for those people, I'm wondering if maybe it will affect their opinions on climate change or whatnot. Because I'm wondering if they could still possibly hang on to their belief that God is the only one that can control the weather. But I think that if I had to pick, like, as far as whatever actions we take will ultimately destroy one or the other, I think that attacking creationism, and then I think that will have a positive effect on the climate change. So I think if you hit creationism, you will positively affect the climate change, the anti-climate change people.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think that people only disregard the evidence for climate change for two reasons. One is because it's more profitable for them to not accept it, or because they think Jesus is coming again tomorrow. So personally, I think creationism, and when they refer to creationists, generally we're talking about people who believe in special creation, not people who accept theistic evolution. Usually, it's people who believe Adam and Eve in the garden. So that's a very dangerous belief, because it goes against one of the main tenets of science that people aren't accepting today, which is evolution. And by going against that and thinking that they're right, they may think, because I've heard this from a lot of Christians, that scientists are working for the devil. And so this leads them to refute other things like vaccines and things like that. So it's still a very important thing that we need to have in the running, as Chad says. But climate change is very relevant right now because the time is running out for us. So we're going to go on to the next question. Just a note here. We all can't answer the question because there's a lot of questions. I warned y'all about this 2 weeks ago. All right. Nestor the Protester says, hypothetically, in a pro-choice mindset, a man and woman have sex. The woman finds out she's pregnant. She tells the man. He says he doesn't want to be a father. The baby is born and she goes to court with the man because she wants child support. Do you believe the man should pay? For this one word answers from you guys, and then one person can tackle it. I say, in a perfect world, yes, the man... Wait, what was the question? Did the man should pay? No. In the perfect world, no, the man wouldn't have to pay.
My one-word answer, yes.
Sorry, I missed the question. Could you just repeat it real quick?
Basically, he's asking this question about a woman and a man have sex and find out that the woman is pregnant. She tells the man. The man said that he doesn't want the baby. The baby is born. She then takes him to court for child support. Do you think the man should pay? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think you should pay because if the man is, he should know the law. When you engage in sexual relationship with somebody, you should know that a pregnancy is a possibility, and the ultimate decision is up to the woman. And then if a child results, that you are responsible for paying, costs of raising that child. So yes.
Can I have this one? Because I'm going to rub against the grain here. I think no. Or yes, depending on how the question is worded. I don't think he has to necessarily be responsible for paying it. I think there should be a clause or a law or a statute or some out that basically would be considered something like financial abortion, meaning that the father writes off any rights to that child whatsoever, and in exchange doesn't have to pay for it. We live in a world where women can work and women can do just as many things as men can, but because of biology, women, very rightly so, have like a dozen outs when it comes to pregnancy. They can end the pregnancy with a whole bunch of different birth controls. They can have a whole lot of different birth controls before pregnancy even happens. They can put it up for adoption. They can get it aborted. They have a lot of outs if they engage in the sexual activity and then decide that they don't want to have the child. A man has two: birth control before the fact, and I guess running. There really isn't any real options for the guy. And I think it I think in our society now, we are in a situation where a guy could have at least one additional out. But of course, it would have to come with a caveat of being like, you're not allowed to basically ever see the child again because you are, as a matter of fact, writing it out of your life. Which I think would be a fair compromise of that situation.
Yeah, I could agree with abdicating parental responsibility, but I think it would have to be mutually agreed upon. I don't think that the guy could just say, like, I don't want anything to do with it, and then the woman would just be like, you know, if she's not agreeable to that, then I don't think it's a compromise. I think that both sides have to be mutually on the same page there, you know.
I agree with that, and I also think that...
I don't see why. That doesn't seem right.
Like I said, in a perfect world, and what I meant by the perfect world is that we live in a perfect world where people realize that we can have sex for pleasure. You know, it's not just to procreate, and we don't have people running around saying condoms are a sin or birth control is a sin or things like that. You can't have an abortion under no circumstance. You have to have that child or it's murder. And so by living in the perfect world, we're talking about everyone is educated. We're all, you know, if you don't want if you're having sex for fun or pleasure, you're taking all the necessary precautions, and the woman is just adamant, like she's out there just to get pregnant. Then in that perfect world, I would say no, and I don't think there needs to be a clause in the perfect world. The man could just do it. But in our world, which is not perfect, I agree with Brendan and Dieter. I think that we should have some kind of mutual agreement. It's kind of a douchebag move because we don't live in the perfect world. So, you know, you're still going to be labeled a deadbeat. I'm just throwing that out.
But it's so backwards.
It's because we don't live in the perfect
equal rights
world.
don't matter. The guy is just like, the girl has absolute power over the situation. The guy is entrapped because not even that he made a mistake, just that nature conspired against him, more or less.
Well, I don't want to get too deep. I don't want to get too deep into this question, but real quick, Dieter, if I could just ask you, so since you're pretty much advocating that a man should be able to like abdicate responsibility, do you think that a man should be able to have an influence on an abortion decision then as well? Because you're saying that like
I really don't think they should, because that's a different story. A woman here's the deal. A woman has like ultimate power over the pregnancy, as she should, because it's in her body. But the guy's just screwed. That's like completely unfair in an egalitarian society. He has no out.
I disagree, but in the interest of time and other questions, we'll set that one aside.
Yeah, we'll have to set it aside because this one's a fun one.
Okay. Somebody get in contact with G because he dropped out like a question ago and see if he's coming back. All right. Georgie_Axolotls says, what do you think about spiritualism and those who claim to have experienced ghosts, etc.? My parents both saw a ghost, so I get this question all the time as an atheist. Chad, you want this one? Take it away, Chad. Take it away. Unless you don't want it, then you can pass it off. We'll do that.
No, I'm happy to answer it because I think I'll probably say something that all of you will vehemently disagree with. So I am a bit unique in that I am an atheist, but I am not necessarily a materialist, and I'm certainly not an empiricist. So I allow room for that sort of thing. Like I'm not necessarily, I haven't experienced anything like that or whatever, but people I trust and people I love, a lot of them claim to, and that sort of thing. But I think it's possible that it could be something that we just haven't figured out yet. You know what I mean? Do I think that dead people who are still conscious and in some sort of spirit form are walking around? No, I don't think that. But I do think that there could be some sort of phenomenon based on, I don't know, based on some kind of weird energy that we don't know, or some hippie nonsense like that. I think it's possible that sort of thing could still exist. I allow room for that.
Went to unmute myself and I muted myself. Anyway, that's that autism kicking in. All right. League of Melee says, what do you think the main harms of religion are? I can answer this one very easily, real quick, so we can move to the next question. the devaluation of your fellow man or woman, and the anti-scientific nature of religions. If we could get rid of those two things, the world would be a much better place. If we could get people to accept science and treat each other fairly and equally, boom, problem solved. Next, Pesky56 says, if all the gods were in a celestial brawl, which one would win?
Oh, I know the answer to this question because I watched Supernatural and Satan wins.
Why? Can you explain why for people that haven't seen it?
He is because all the other gods have lost favor of their followers, so they're in a weakened state. So Satan is able to just waltz right in because doomsday is basically happening and just destroy all of them instantly. Then Gabriel showed up and had a bit of a fight with him, but Gabriel's a bit of a dick at the moment. Not important. The show's great. There's lots of fire.
All right. Okay, next question. JP Gonsalves says, as science continues to disprove more and more of the Bible and moderate Christians concede more and more biblical stories, letting them go the way of just parables, do they claim Genesis' account of Adam and Eve genetically impossible for the human race to start from two people as such, just a parable? Because that's where our original sin comes from. So why would God send Jesus to die for a fucking parable? How do Christians explain that? Which stories are parables and which are literal? GE.
So that is,
Go ahead.
You can pass it off to someone else or take it.
Hold on. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry. I had to restart, and I've been trying to get the stuff set up.
All right, here's the short version. So he's saying that we're disproving more and more of the Bible. We've basically disproved through genetics that Adam and Eve couldn't have possibly been true. We know through the theory of evolution that it couldn't have possibly been true. And they keep saying that more and more stories and things in the Bible are just parables or metaphors. How do we go about... let me read his last question because that was probably what he exactly wanted to know. Which stories are parables and which are literal? How do Christians explain that?
Well, generally how Christians explain which are parables and which are to be taken literally is whether or not the particular story or whatnot really coincides with our societal morals as they have evolved. If you just take a look in the past, stuff that has been taken literally has all of a sudden become a parable once our societal morals have changed due to forces outside of religion. So I would say that as soon as the general acceptance or the general change in our morals, like for instance with marriage equality, as soon as that really takes the complete turn into being a morally neutral situation, stuff like Leviticus 20:13 is just going to completely become a parable, or it's going to be completely disregarded as something that was law at the time or BS like that.
What actually makes it worse, and this has happened a bunch of times already, is the moment a generation or so goes by, they're going to claim that Christianity supported gay marriage all along. It's sick.
Well, yeah, they've done that with every single major societal change throughout history. And they'll take instances of like religious people being leaders in a movement or something like that, like with MLK Jr. And maybe probably Abraham Lincoln, as far as the slavery goes. So, I mean, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, we were at the forefront. It's like you were only at the forefront because somebody else said something, not because you came across a new translation of the Bible or anything, because that hasn't changed over time.
I would like to add just briefly that I do know some Christians who say that the entire Bible is just nothing but parables. None of it is to be taken literally except for the ethical prescriptions, basically. So they're out there. I think that's going to become more and more common, that people are just going to say none of the history is true. It's just all about ethics, so only focus on that part. They're out there, and that might be a good change.
Okay, which ethics? Which ethics are we talking about? The ones
Fair
where
question.
slavery is just awesome?
No, that's a metaphor. That's a metaphor.
Well, now,
A metaphor for what?
I do want to stress that most Christians nowadays, at least apologists, they break up Old Testament law into like 3 categories. One being cultural, one being moral, and the other one being I can't remember it right now, but they break them up into 3 things basically, right? And so they say that like the cultural laws aren't in effect anymore. That would be stuff like don't eat shrimp and don't wear linen or linen of mixed fabrics, stuff like that. And then you got the moral laws that they often tie to the New Testament, which what they completely disregard is that the New Testament was written to exactly match the Old Testament. So, but
let's talk about slavery in the New Testament then.
well, yeah, but I mean, like with the slavery laws, that would be cultural. So I mean, they break them up, and so you have this like de-evolution of the Old Testament laws. At first, they were all literal. Now there's 3 different kinds, of course, and then sooner or later, they're just going to be all in the past, or they're all going to be cultural, or they're all just going to be not relevant in general.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Ken Ham trying to divide science up into observational science and historical science because, just science is inconvenient. So
That's kind of going to go into the next question here, which is from Shadow Emperor. He wants to know why theists mix the Big Bang, abiogenesis, and evolution into one theory, and why they can't understand it. What can we do to bridge the gap?
I think the reason they do that is because they kind of they amalgamate atheism with naturalism, and a lot of times that's true. I'm a naturalist, I'm a materialist, I'm an empiricist. Obviously, not all atheists are, but I think overwhelmingly that's the case. I think that's just the nature of the beast, because obviously there's no special qualifications needed to be an atheist, but most atheists, especially outspoken ones, are probably going to have some kind of background and education and knowledge regarding science and things of that nature. They're going to have a background and a justification for their position, something more firm than just I don't believe because I don't believe. But yeah, I think it also comes from a place of ignorance and just misunderstanding where they don't necessarily understand that those 3 theories are completely separate ideas that address 3 very separate questions. The Big Bang is how did our universe begin? And of course, we don't make any claims about what happened or what may have existed or been the state of reality before that. It describes how our universe came to be. And then we have obviously abiogenesis, which is trying to answer the question of how life on Earth came into existence. Not, it doesn't even answer how life in the universe may have came to be, just how life on Earth came to be. There's different theories. There's like panspermia, maybe it was transported here from another planet. There's, maybe an alien race designed life here on Earth. Obviously, the natural abiogenesis theory has to do with self-replicating molecules, things of that nature. And then obviously evolution, which only addresses once life is established here on Earth, how it evolves and changes and adapts to survive its environment here on Earth. So I think for them, since all 3 of those challenge their beliefs and challenge their assumptions, I think they tend to mold them together into one cohesive unit because they see them all as challenges to what they believe. And like I said, a lot of the times, that's the case. But none of that is necessary to be an atheist. Certainly those help us address some of their claims, especially like Abrahamic theology. We can address what they claim to be true by using evidence and science revolving around those theories. So I think that's why they try to attack those specifically.
It's always kind of been my opinion that in some way, in the recesses of the brains of the higher up religious folk, they kind of have an understanding that you can't really argue against evolution anymore. That's kind of why theistic evolution has been becoming popular for once. But I think it's because of that. They can't really say that evolution definitely never happened. So they have to create nuance. They have to create like a division within evolution for no reason. And then they have to tack on other theories because by itself, evolution is just an observable fact. And they can't pretend it isn't anymore. So they have to tell their flock or their constituents or their customers, rather, that this is all just a lie that's all cobbled together in this giant chunk of super evil science that they're trying to control you with. So it has to all go together or nothing. And if you tell them that, that means you won and your faith is correct and you're just awesome. But
I think I speak for Ken Ham when I say, were you there?
yes, I was. Prove me wrong.
That's a good one, though. That's a good counter argument to it. Okay, the Scientific Atheist says, why did you choose the name God Works Out? I originally started this channel as a Christian fitness channel, and I kind of just stuck with it. You know, I originally was, after I became an atheist and I already had created the channel, it was there for a while and I never had any content on it. I decided to make satirical videos, and then it just stuck. So, next question. Native American atheist says, if God is everywhere, is he in the toilet?
Well, considering he's a piece of shit, yeah.
He's in the toilet while he's on the toilet, shitting himself out of his own asshole. Okay.
That's Godception.
Will anybody be voting for Rick Perry if he decides to make a run for president?
If I can ever stop laughing, no.
That's
I would be voting for him in the Republican primary so that he was actually the GOP candidate, because once we got him there, that would be a guaranteed loss. But after that, no.
Some of these questions, I don't know if we want to take them. Demon666 Girl says, is doing crack okay with weed?
Don't do crack ever. With anything.
Yeah, but you remember the 80s, people weren't taking that advice.
Crack is whack.
You're
Yo.
old.
Okay.
You're also old.
Tyler, the Creator FP says, do you think a small percentage of your followers are stupid and are here to hate on you due to their ridiculous religious views and thought you were a God fan page at first, but then went all batshit insane on you for using the name of God in vain? Vain like a vascularity. By the way, I really like your account. So let's go ahead and readdress the question so that it's applicable to all of us. Do you think that there are people that follow you just to hate on you on social media?
I have like a handful of people that I'm fairly confident, because they've told me, that they follow me because they disagree with what I have to say, but they still like the way that I say it. So that's neat.
Yeah, that's probably pretty true. I mean, I would say I like to argue online. I have started to make a habit of it. So I would say I have trolls on both sides of the fence, really. I have some people who argue for the views that I support, and I wish that they wouldn't because they're bad at it. And then, yeah, you know, haters from the other side too. So, you know, what you gonna do? Haters are everywhere.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain there are a number of people that follow my page just to give me shit about something. I mean, it could be the littlest thing ever. Like just yesterday, or today actually, I posted I got ordained a minister at the American Marriage ministry things, because here in Alabama they're going to start marrying gay couples tomorrow, and the courthouses are being big dicks about it, and they're not going to be marrying homosexual couples, and so there's a collaborative effort to meet in the local big park here to provide that service for people, because the courthouses won't. And of course, not everybody down here in the South is a dick. They're not going to make a pastor marry them when the pastor doesn't agree with their lifestyle choice. And so we're providing a service for them, because the people that are supposed to do it aren't going to do it. But anyways, I posted that on my page, showing people that I went through, I did that, and I'm going to be helping people do that. And somebody was like, you're just assuming they're not going to be marrying people at the courthouse. That's racist of you. I'm like, racist? What race? And I kid you not, you can go to Godless Engineer on Facebook, and you can look at my little certificate thing. He says, "No, Southern is a race." Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's when you just kind of accept that this guy has no hope left. But I think that, okay, so here's a point that I need to bring up here, is that because I have a lot of religious followers, and I get messages from them all the time, and they say things like, I really appreciate the way you address our arguments and things like that, and I respect you as one of the nicer atheists, and because you don't really bash and trash religion. And I'm like, hey, okay, if that's what you think, man, you're obviously not up to date with all of my content. But on the flip side, I do give them a fair share. I do try with people. Like, when they present something to me, I do try. I don't automatically assume that they're stupid or that they're just here to troll, because you can't do that. You have to treat every theist as if this is the first time that they've ever heard a counter argument. Now, that's kind of silly, but you need to do that unless they give you a reason otherwise. Now, if they give you a reason otherwise, you think they're a troll, you think they're just there to try to convert you or just to be a dick, then it's okay to berate them and their ideas, especially them if they don't want to change their ideas. But I've always said that when a theist follows a theist, they're looking for reassurance. When a theist follows an atheist, they're looking to hear their religion. What was I going to say? They're looking to have their religion questioned. And most times they can't question it themselves because people tell them that they can't. You question it, you're going to go to hell. So that could be a reason why some of us have religious followers. Kleiner433 says, do you like metal music? As long as it's not screamo.
Well, I actually do have a really big Atheist tattoo on my back. And Atheist is a metal band that, I don't have a problem with their music, so, I like them all right. I'm not obsessed with them or anything, but, they got a pretty cool logo and their music's decent.
I respect it as an art form and respect the fact that it takes talent to make. I don't care to listen to it.
Yeah, as for me, it's not my most favorite style of music, but I certainly do enjoy some of it. Depends on the style and the band. I think that's a pretty broad category. I think I'd probably need a little more information on exactly what they mean by metal, as far as like bands or style or things of that. But I'm pretty anything that's heavy or rock, metal, punk, anything in that genre is kind of my preferred musical style. So I would say, in general, yes, I like metal music.
I don't. I actually really enjoy singing, and I sing obnoxiously to songs that I listen to. So I like listening to things that are easy to sing to.
I guess I should mention I was in a band 15, 12 years ago, whatever it was, back in the day. There's several songs that I posted on my channel. We were called Explicit Content. I don't know if you would consider that metal or not, but I don't know. Check it out if you so are inclined. And you can see. But yeah, that was definitely a style that I think we dabbled in a little bit. So
Explicit content from a Christian. That would be interesting.
Future USMCO says, what do you feel is the most convincing reason or reasons that would make somebody seriously question their God or gods, and have you used this on somebody, and were you successful with it?
I've always found that there's no, and this is passed around a lot on the internet as just general advice, so I'm going to give it right now. There is no magic answer to basically, like, there is no give this piece of paper to any theist and they will stop believing right away. It's extremely personalized. So I've had conversations with people that go over the course of weeks, and it's basically just filling, like, giving them a bunch of little seeds of doubt. I think that's the best overarching solution to talking people out of theism, for lack of better terms, is you just have to have them internally question the reasons, the individual reasons for which they believe in whatever religion. And you get that from conversation. You can't really get it just by, I guess we could do like a top 10, but it really is highly individualized.
Black Michael 6 says, why did God create cancer? To kill you. Down with Big Brother says, given the reality of life on Earth, is it possible to be both smart and happy?
Is it possible? I mean, yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Please tell me they're not mutually exclusive.
I would say yes, but for me it requires medication.
Honestly, I'd say yes, it's possible, and I guess what he's getting at here is that, the whole probably regarding religion, ignorance is bliss, and the more you realize that there's no God here to save us, and that we're really just fucking ourselves over, and we're ruining the earth and destroying people's lives. Can you really be smart and think about this shit and be happy at the same time? And I think that the answer is you've got to. It's okay to want to address these things. It's okay to want to change these things, but for your own personal self, you're responsible for your happiness. Your own happiness is going to come from within. You can't dwell on this stuff because we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world that has been seized by people who want to make money, and most of these people are very sadistic, and they're going to do whatever they can to keep making their money or to be in control. And I think that, when you start thinking about people that are starving, 15 million kids starve to death every year, you can help. And whether you're doing your own philanthropy, or maybe you're contributing to a charity or someone else that is doing philanthropy-related projects, you need to realize that you can obtain happiness out of that, knowing that you're changing the world. You can't put it all on your own shoulders, though. You're not going to be able to single-handedly change the world. It doesn't matter what you do. You can cure cancer tomorrow. You're not going to change the world by yourself. Sorry I went on a little rant there, but you guys can take it.
I joked around a little bit, but I actually think that having an intelligent, well-informed outlook on the world can lead you to having much deeper appreciation and extremely profound happiness. Because when you are able to, and I'm actually discussing specifically relationships with other people, when you have a certain degree of intelligence that I think most people in general have, you have the ability to be exceptionally empathetic. It's not just the banal, overarching, I can feel what you feel. It's literally feeling what another person feels, their ups and downs and their terror and their joy. And I think the smarter you get, the deeper that kind of connection can be made. So that you can meet someone on the street and just have a conversation with them and really understand what it means to be happy. Because there are people that are happy for all sorts of different reasons, and a lot of them are different than yours. And I think it's amazing. The human experience is amazing. And the smarter you are and the further you investigate, the more opportunities you're going to have.
I can see how you can get very overwhelmed with the current state of affairs in the world and kind of get just depressed and want to push it aside. And in some sense, you do have to.
But that's the point. Is the more you're open to new ideas and the more that you're open to viewing the world as it actually is, the better opportunity you have to make an impact, like in impactful moments, to make impactful work, to actually do something to make the world better. You can't do that if you shelter yourself alone in your own head, and you can't do that if you don't investigate and if you just stay closed off from the rest of the world. If you are intelligent, use it. It's really amazing.
That's true, and here's a great time to shamelessly self-promote our philanthropy-related projects over at patreon.com/reason. Head over there and check it out. Next question. Zombie
so
Princess.
much eye rolling.
You can. Hey, we're doing things. You know, Dieter just went out there and helped the kids and whatnot in New Orleans. So you know, if you support Reason, you're supporting philanthropy, because that's something that I've been doing since 2008. I've been actively giving 15% of my income. I never was a tither because I didn't like the concept of giving it to a church, but I did and do give 15% of everything that I have, including my time, to charitable efforts. So, Zombie Princess 323 says, here's a question. How do you feel about The Amazing Atheist? If you've seen his videos, what things do you agree or disagree with, and why?
I think overall, I'm okay with him. I guess I view him favorably overall. Obviously, when I first started getting into this whole atheist activism, and before I started my channel, I was kind of watching other channels and seeing how they were approaching things and what opinions they were giving and all that sort of things. And as far as my familiarity with TJ, I certainly don't begrudge anyone their style, the way they want to do things. I understand that everybody's different and has a different approach to things. In a way, people like him inspired me to do it a little bit differently, to have a different voice and a different way of going about it, to maybe reach people in, a little different way, or maybe, just to be different, just to have a different approach, and maybe that works for other people, and maybe what he does works for people too. If he's helping people to understand, because he makes a lot of really good arguments. I mean, he really does. In a lot of cases, and he can explain himself cogently and clearly, and so I know a lot of times he just kind of yells and screams and rants and all that sort of stuff, but there's other times that he also makes very very good videos that are very calm and rational and things of that nature. I don't really like when he kind of veers off into some of these controversial things like feminism, and some of his opinions on things like that I don't agree with. I think he's really kind of extreme on some of those things. When he sticks to the topic of religion, I mostly agree with him a lot of the time. When he veers off into other things, which of course is his prerogative to do, especially, you can't build an entire channel just on one thing, on atheism. It gets boring after a while. So like I said, I just basically, I guess in a nutshell, like overall, I'm okay with him, but there's areas I disagree with him on. I'm not going to go into all the different specifics right here and now. But I think overall, if he's out there and people are watching him, hey, more power to him, and he's doing his thing, so, I'm okay with that.
I think that he's filling the entertainment niche. He is kind of, I guess, preaching to the choir to say, versus people who are actually out there, like, Matt Dillahunty's channel is like really going now, and he's out there basically addressing arguments and kind of debating with people and things like that, and he's filling a different niche. which is to try to spread knowledge. And I think that TJ is an entertainer. What do you guys think? I mean, he does have a few great videos.
Well,
I think
sorry. I was just going to say I agree that he is an entertainer. I'm fairly certain that his videos are flagged as entertainment. And I don't really take his channel as really putting forth any kind of education other than just educating people on his point of view. And if you happen to agree with it, disagree with it, or if it changes your mind, I still think that's pretty valuable. I do like TJ and his style. You know, from an entertainment perspective, I guess. And I love watching him, and I have to say he has changed my view on bananas completely. And so, you know, I don't think any one person is going to be bad for the atheist movement. I mean, if anything, you know, we have a very diverse group of people in our community, and I think, you know, I don't think any one certain attitude is bad for the community or whatnot, just because we are diverse, and we should really be proud of that, I guess.
personally, I really like him. Like, he was one of the big people that inspired me to actually get started on a channel, and I like the way that he interacts with other people, because he honestly, there's nothing he really says that I necessarily disagree with. And his candor and the way that he explains things is normally fairly accurate. So the most I can say is his tact might be off in some of the ways that he talks, but that's just nuance, because he does reach people and he does change people's minds in very bizarre ways. And I'm not really sure what the banana incidents changed for you, but on that actual particular note, he handled that situation with the most grace I've ever seen anybody handle that kind of situation. So, good job, TJ.
I have to say, TJ does get the trophy for giving no fucks. I will admit that.
No,
and
that was the point, though. He did give a fuck. Did you see that? Like, the video he put out after that incident was specifically, I don't want this to be something we don't talk about. I want to talk about this because I think we are way too prude and way too unopen about talking about things like things in a sexual nature. He was just like, he owned it, which was awesome.
Well, no, I guess by not the giving no fucks, what I mean is more along the lines of he didn't give a fuck about, you know, discussing it. As far as, you know, he wasn't embarrassed to discuss it. He wasn't embarrassed by it or anything, or at least that's not what I gathered from his response videos or the videos that he had posted right after it. Of course, I didn't really know about it until after, way after the incident happened. But as far as I know, it's been a pretty constant kind of inside joke around there.
Okay, so while we're on this, Rick Perry in the comment section asks, well, the drunken peasants shut down their chat, yet judges Anita Sarkeesian for shutting his comment section down. I think he meant her, but we'll go with his. What do you think? What do you think is he being a hypocrite here?
I'll jump in on this really quick. I don't think that he's being a hypocrite because of the reasons behind disabling comments or whatnot. They disabled comments because their live chats were getting filled with spam and And as far as I know, they actually got a whole bunch of moderators, and there's actually people moderating the chat now. So I mean, they are trying to keep the chat up, but I mean, they just had a whole bunch of people that were spamming stuff in there, and it wasn't productive. It wasn't it wasn't adding to the discussion or anything like that. Whereas I guess Anita Sarkeesian, as far as I know, they disable comments because they just want an echo chamber of their own thoughts. They don't want people to question them. As far as I know, now if somebody else knows a better reason why they've disabled comments, it might be similar to TJ and the Drunken Peasants reason, but I kind of doubt that.
I think the reason they'll always give is because they're tired of getting like threatened, even though that's the vast minority of comments they get. And to be fair, the Drunken Peasants also gets threatened on a fairly regular basis. And I think their videos still have the comments section on, they just don't have the chat. They also have a Facebook that they recommend everybody go to and post other questions. So these two situations aren't even remotely similar. So I don't see any hypocrisy.
I've always said that the comment section is the cesspool of human ignorance. And basically, it kind of is, in my subjective experience, I've realized that atheists in the atheist community can be some of the most nitpicky, horrible people to leave you comments in the comment section. And a lot of them are trolls. Now, we're not making a blanket statement here, but, you do have people that generally try to come in and subvert, and, you're dealing with people that want to troll and use humor and things like that. But generally, because we can relate this back to the religious, when you have popular religious YouTube channels that disable the entire comment section, not just the live section, but the entire comment section, they're doing that so that they don't have to deal with hearing the counter arguments, because they want to continue on in their ignorance. Now, from my understanding, what they're doing is simply disabling the live chat, because it's hard to moderate. Right now, I have 100 notifications on Google or YouTube or whatever, and I probably won't even get through those in a week, and by that time, there will be another 100. So just imagine somebody like him that has, 200,000 subscribers or more or whatever he has. It's impossible. Even if they have people to moderate the comment section, they won't be able to keep out all the spammers.
I do also think it's worth mentioning real quick that just in my general very pro-feminism viewpoint, that it's very different. A comment section for a female YouTuber is very different from the comment section for a male YouTuber, just in the number of rape comments. So, always keep that in mind when a female specifically shuts down comments on a YouTube channel or anything.
It's also different the number of murder comments, which are normally focused on guys. But that's a different conversation.
You mean it's not okay to tell her to make you a sandwich? Darn it, man.
It's anonymity on the internet. They're going to say whatever they know will push the person's buttons.
That's a joke, by the way, so don't be leaving me any, don't start trolling me, feminazis, because I'm a feminist. That was a joke.
Wait a second. You mean I can't make my wife get me... Sarah, make me a sandwich.
Oh, well, it's different if she's your wife, because she's your property in the eyes of the law. So, especially in Alabama. So.
Woo! You're my property, honey.
All right, Sitting in the Shade says, "Is this your career?"
Divorced for some reason?
Sitting in the Shade says, "Is this your career? How does one go about developing a career in philosophy or any other mainly thought-based speaking career? Please tag me in something if you respond to my question, as I tend to be too busy for YouTube. Thanks ahead of a time. Peace to the unbelievers." So I guess we all gotta, answer this question. No, this is not my career, and most likely it's not anyone else's career in here, because we're not generating dollars like that on YouTube. Okay, we're not getting $5,000 a month off Patreon. Anyway, how does one go about developing a career? I'll let Chad handle that one when we get to that, but we can just go ahead and say, you know, what we do. I work for the government as a special emphasis coordinator. I'm also a Lyft driver, part-time Lyft driver. I do part-time valet and a part-time bouncer, and I'm currently in school for aviation full-time, and I'm going to be starting my master's in psychology here in a couple weeks. But here on Reason, I'm on the panel as a religious scholar because I've received multiple degrees in religious studies. So I think that's more along the lines of what they're looking for. That's my contribution to Reason, is that I'm the religious scholar here.
Yeah, so for me, obviously I make no money doing anything moderately resembling this. I'm a freelance writer. I've written at offices and stuff and worked in pretty much every field you could possibly imagine. But yeah, I'm a freelance writer and a stay-at-home dad, so none of this is really, you know, good for me to survive off of. I do, however, have a sugar mama, so that's how I survive.
Well, me, I am a software engineer. I have a bachelor's in computer engineering and a master's in software engineering. And I work for some place that I'm not going to mention because I'm going to remain mysterious about that. But I do work for in an engineering capacity. I work in web development and whatnot. And I've you know, my Facebook page has gotten kind of big, and it, you know, the only reason why it did was just because I had a lot to say and I kept up a good schedule on it, and so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, this is definitely not my career, although I wouldn't mind if it were. I have a master's degree in molecular biology, and I am a scientist. I work for a Fortune 500 company. And yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing this as a hobby, and if I could make a career out of, you know, doing YouTube videos and doing activism and blogging and writing books and things of that nature, I would absolutely do it because I'm very passionate about it. That's what I enjoy doing. But realistically, it's probably not going to ever happen. So, you know, I do this as a hobby. It's something I enjoy doing. I get to meet people doing this. I get to have really interesting discussions, and so, you know, I enjoy it as far as that goes. But certainly, I have a family to provide for, and this is probably just not going to cut it. So in the meantime, I will just keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, I'm still in college. I'm younger than all these people with their crazy families and whatever. And I do research at a university level.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 24, dude.
I'm 25. Not
Well,
that much older than you.
shut the hell up.
30.
That's my life. Anyway, so other than the people close to my age, apparently, I'm getting close to finishing up school. I'm an engineer of sorts. I do engineering research. This is not, I don't make any money off of this, but this is my hobby. I adore talking about things, and I, over the course of like 8 years, have amassed a lot of opinions. And people, for some reason, like hearing them. So I will dispense until the community gets bored. I also really enjoy the activism aspect of it. I want to tailor it a lot with what I want to do in the future, and humanism, all that sort of stuff. So if this could be a career, or at least something I can make some side money off of, that would just be awesome. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, so then I guess I'll go ahead and get into the how do you get a career in philosophy and speaking part of the question, which the short and terrible answer is you don't almost all of the time. I got my degree in philosophy the first time I went through college. You'll notice I said the first time. Got my degree in philosophy, and then went out into the real world to try and do anything, really. Well, actually, before that, I should mention I applied to graduate programs in philosophy, which are incredibly competitive. Didn't get into any of them, despite the fact that I think I'm a pretty smart guy. So that career was decided for me. Then I went and just did some shitty job for a year, decided to go back to college, got trained to be an English teacher, decided I didn't want to do that, and now here we are. So as far as, I mean, if you want to get a career in like speaking and writing and something like that, I could at least sort of guide you in how to do some of that. And really the short answer is just to do whatever it is that you want to do. Like if you want to get speaking engagements, build a portfolio of yourself speaking. Even if it's to an empty room at first, you have to have a portfolio first. If you want to write a lot, try and start up a blog, put your stuff out there, you know, do whatever it is that you got to do. For me, fortunately, I found a job at an office. That was kind of my first foray into writing, so I had a head start that way. But yeah, if you just want to do it freelance, you just have to start doing it. Like that's really it. If you want a career in philosophy specifically, it's going to be tough, but you know, do real well in school and be prepared to move around a lot because you're going to have a lot of one-year appointments in academia as a non-tenured professor.
You mean everyone just can't be William Lane Craig?
Man, that would be amazing. I would love it. But sadly, not this guy.
You could always be a great purveyor of satire like Ray Comfort. I'm still convinced that he's not the real deal. I'm convinced, man. There's no way. You know, as an atheist, because we, you know, the first two letters of our name stands for religiously educated. The more you know, the more easy it becomes to satire. So I think that he's a satirist, and I think that there is potential for people like him to exist. I also think the Freedom from Atheism Foundation is a satirical group. I just think there's no way that you can be around that much stuff and still not get it. So there's hope for you. You could be a purveyor of satire. You just got to pretend to be dumb and use fruits as proof of God. Next. Does it benefit society that everyone has access to immediately broadcasting every single thought we have? Not just in social media, but in virtually any other form of communication. It is seemingly real that everybody has a voice. Who wants it?
Yes, because communication is always a good thing. Communication never causes any harm. Communication is never, ever a bad thing. Even if you're saying hateful things, at least you're letting people know what your views are, and they know how to view you, and they know where you're coming from. Communication is the most important part of the human experience, I think. So I think that everybody having social media and stuff, yes, it's mostly garbage, but there's also some amazing stuff out there. You know what I mean? So communication is good. Social media is good. Being able to share your thoughts is good. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, while we're forced to suffer through a lot of minutia and meaningless trivialities and things of people's lives, it's absolutely a good thing. Just from the perspective of when people put something out there, it's permanent. Like you can't just take it back, and that's a good thing because you get politicians putting things out on social media, and then it's like you could just nail them for it because they can't. Then they have to try to figure out how they're going to handle it, because they said it, they put it out there, and even if it's just not them doing it, but like their social media manager or whoever manages their account, like they still have to deal with that and explain themselves. And I think it's a good thing. You also have criminals. They, put their information online, and that helps the police to catch them. That's a really good thing. It makes their job a lot easier. And then, as far as what we do, discussing science and religion and things of that nature is huge. It's hugely important. I don't think there's any doubt that that there's a correlation between the increase in people leaving religion and becoming atheists and things of that nature, and the rise of the internet. As the generations have grown up. Have come up with the internet, they have access to so much more information and opportunities like this where they can see people discussing religion and having talks about it and just getting information. You got to think about the world before the internet. Where were people getting information? They were getting it from their parents. They were getting it from their church, their community, their local community and area. And that was like, unless they kind of went out and expanded their horizons, even if you went to like a local college, if it was if it was a university that was very much in tune with those ideas and thoughts, you wouldn't be able to get that diversity of opinion. And it's hugely important, I think, especially for areas like this. Absolutely.
All right, last question. Finally, Rainbow Brina says, what are some examples and maybe some resources of biblical stories that are found in other older religions? Personally here, I can say a lot of the Old Testament draws parallels from other things, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the flood stories. You've got the Tower of Babel, draws from the Babylonian things. If you ever get time, look up Lilith. Lilith is another good example of drawing from other religions. And don't fall for the zeitgeist type of plagiarism, because a lot of the information that was presented in that film is not as accurate as it is portrayed to be. Christianity has a lot of fan fiction, and so do these older religions. And just because someone wrote something in addition to, Dionysus or, Osiris or something like that, which I think Osiris is the closest one in resemblance to Jesus, if I recall, and all the rest of them were pretty much bunk. But most historians that I follow would agree with this and would direct you to Eastern religions, ancient Near Eastern religions. If anybody else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels between biblical creation story and the Sumerian creation story. There's definitely ties to Yahweh worship with like Canaanite polytheism. They had Yahweh as like a war god, and then he evolved kind of into the Hebrews' main deity, and then eventually their sole deity as they kind of evolved into monotheism and made him the most important. And you can see vestiges of this in the Old Testament, where it says things like, "We have made mankind in our image." So obviously, and a lot of apologists will try to explain that, that just means the Trinity, but that's not really what it's coming from. It's coming from that polytheism where there was multiple gods, but Yahweh was the main God. And so, an important historical artifact is the Enuma Elish, and that is some of the kind of historical information on Yahwehism and things of that nature. So that's definitely something to look into. There was a really good video done by the YouTuber, I think it was Evidence, but he uses like leet speak in his name. It's like he uses the number 3 for the E's. It's the title of the video is 3.3.3 Atheism: A History of God Part 1, and that kind of has some of the information that I'm talking about. So I think that's a lot of good information to look into as far as where the Bible draws inspiration from.
Also, maybe a really sorry. You can go ahead.
No, I just think okay, it's really short. I think it's just also important to look at all the other parts of the Bible that were removed, and you're able to see a lot of where, like, stories from older versions of those stories. You can also see how they just change throughout time. I did this like a few podcasts ago, but I have a Bible from like over 100 years ago, and it's written differently than the ones we read right now. So it's all of its translation, all of its interpretation. None of it is how it originally was, and it's just a whole lot of ridiculous. And no, it's not autographed. Who the hell would autograph it?
Yeah, I was going to jump in. I think that, with the zeitgeist, I think the trap that they fell into was just, common ideas that are shared due to just the nature of the human mind. Like, take, for instance, pyramids. you know, the Egyptians built pyramids, but then also there were you know, Native Americans in Central America that were building pyramids. I think right around the same time. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, but I know that they were totally separate societies that had no real contact with each other, but yet they built you know, similar structures and whatnot. And so I think that the whole trap that Zeitgeist fell into was that, you know, these things seem similar, so therefore, you know, Jesus must have been plagiarized off of him. And I think that they kind of jumped to a conclusion and they really shouldn't have. Me myself, I am a mythicist. I don't think Jesus existed at all. I think he was, you know, constructed by some people that really wanted to control a portion of the Jewish population. And so I think there's a lot of evidence for that, just in how the Bible is constructed itself and whatnot. And I'm actually doing a series on my channel for that, but yeah, that's how I feel about the Zeitgeist deal.
So we do got a couple more. Let's go ahead and hit these real quick. Rick Perry, do you think G-Man is a satire of Christianity? As a Christian myself, I'd like to know your response. And then he also asked, why do I think Ray Comfort is satire? And I'll give you the quick thing, and then I guess we can address G-Man specifically. I think that when you become a person who is outspoken in your realm of knowledge, whether that be Christianity or any other religion or anything, and you're consistently presented with a counter argument, and you're consistently involved in debates where you're proven wrong, you're provided with evidence against your claims, and you're still holding this view, and you're still trolling, basically, I think there's no way that he can't be a purveyor of satire, because he knows everything that we know. He knows all the arguments for atheism. I mean, he's debated people like Matt Dillahunty. I think he tried to take on Sam Harris as well. So I mean, he's touched or came in contact with most of the mainstream people that are very outspoken atheists, and I think that makes it impossible because he knows the position. He knows why we don't believe in that God. He knows why we don't accept those claims, and we're consistently telling him why he shouldn't either, but he still is. And he's doing things like the banana. I mean, come on, there's no way that you didn't know about the banana. There's no way.
No, I disagree with you to a degree. I don't doubt that there are satirists out there, but some of them actually say that they are, which is very helpful for us to identify them. But I think you underestimate the power of the human mind.
The comfort zone. I mean, come on. You're calling... Look, he's taken on Einstein and said that he was an idiot because of his letters. He's went after Stephen Hawking. He went after...
I really, like... I have, like, to be an honest person, I kind of have to assume that when someone is proposing an argument, it's an argument they actually believe. And I think it's actually to his detriment that he acts the way that he does, because even if he makes money and has followers, he's the one that, like, if we argue against the things that he's saying, people that are listening to the argument will be exposed to how crappy his words are.
That's the thing, though. I'm saying that he's always exposed to it.
No, I think him existing is more of his position rather existing is more of a detriment to his lifestyle than it's a benefit right now, and I don't think he realizes that. And if he did, I think he would start becoming more lenient and changing his mind. That's what all the other religious people do, is they pretty much have to just warp their beliefs to make them conform with reality. He doesn't, and I think it's because he honestly believes what he's saying. If he didn't, then he's just an idiot.
I swear I once saw a video, it was like an outtake, where he was trying to make the argument that an apple was like the perfect food. I swear I've seen this video. I have not been able to find it since then. But like he basically did two versions of it. One was the banana and one was the apple, and apparently he went with the banana. But at any rate, I don't know. I mean, it's Poe's law. I mean, you know, it's almost impossible to distinguish satire from people that actually believe this stuff. And I mean, you got to believe that at least some percentage of these people, like, you know, pastors or these creationists or things, you know, they're just in it for the money and they're selfish and they don't care what bad information they're putting out there or who they're hurting or whatever because they're just selfish. But, like, yeah, I don't know that, like, it would take a lot of effort to really to go to that extreme, you know? I mean, that takes a lot of effort and acting and putting on a show and, like, really you have to commit yourself to really do that. I think that he's actually sincere and genuine about it as far as Ray Comfort goes. I just think that there's people out there that they just really are not going to be convinced by any sort of rational argument. They just believe what they believe and they don't care, and they don't want to be honest with themselves. They just want to believe what they want, and that's it. And as far as G-Man, I don't know. I'm not super familiar with him. I'm vaguely familiar with him, I guess. But I also don't think that he is trolling, because I know at one point he came out and said that he was an atheist for a few days. He was like, oh, I'm convinced, everybody changed my mind, I'm an atheist now. And he kind of did that for a few days or like a week or something. And then he came out and he was like, yeah, I'm just fucking with you guys. So, you know, he would be like a Poe within a Poe, I guess, if he was doing that shit. So taking it to a whole nother level.
But that's what I'm saying. These people that are having their beliefs confirmed by people, post-ception. These people that are having their beliefs confirmed by people like Ray Comfort is different than Ray Comfort himself, because he's constantly exposed, you know, to the upper echelon of knowledge, and his followers are not. They may be coming into contact with it, but they're also hearing him talk, so they're following it, and he's confirming what they believe. But he doesn't have anyone doing that. He's at the top, okay, and he's coming into contact with these people, and that's why I think that, you know, it's only a matter of time before you just can't believe it anymore. I mean, you've got some amount of reason is going to get through.
You're using your rationale, and like, no, I'm not even like insulting Ray, because I think he has completely like logically consistent reasons within his own mind of why he believes what he believes. What you're doing is you're kind of like projecting your own value of evidence, honestly, onto another person. And if you just don't care, and you make your basis God exists, and now let's start talking about it, then what he believes makes perfect sense.
Okay, but
so you can't say I have to assume that he's genuine.
But Ken Ham, were you there? I mean, can you really?
I think he thinks that is a jaw-dropping, brilliant comment, and I can understand why he thinks that, because he doesn't know better.
But he's been told better. He's been provided examples, you know, of how the "were you there" argument is not.
No, okay. So we all have one of these. Like, we all have something in our lives where someone says that it's wrong, or that it's not good music, or it's not a good movie or something. No matter what they tell you, it's going to just wash over you, because you're just going to be like, no, my reasons make perfect sense to me. We're just going to agree to disagree, or we're just going to never stop arguing about it.
I don't know. I think that "were you there" is like so preschool. It's kindergarten, man. And really, if you go back to the Bill Nye debate, I have a book. Like, that has to be. That's such golden comedy, man. It has to be satire.
It's not, though, because if you look from their point of view, that makes perfect sense. And that is a perfect argument. Because the Bible is absolute perfection written by God. So how can you possibly think that it's wrong?
Okay, so
like, that makes perfect sense. It just turns out that that basis is wrong. That's the thing you have to convince them of, and that's not going to happen by anyone giving them evidence. Because they believe for reasons other than, like, confirmative evidence. They believe because they want to.
Yeah, and see, Ken Ham is falling victim to the sunk cost fallacy, but he literally has a sunk cost in the Ark encounter that he has to now make happen. So he has to keep it going, even if he literally understands that he's wrong. He still has to get that thing back up to in the black. He's got to get his tax breaks to get that thing going, or he's screwed. So even if he knows he's wrong, he's still got to pretend like he believes that stuff so he can get his boat, up and running.
I've often had on my own channel, like I haven't actually been making that many videos recently, and part of it is because I've been like reviewing my tact. Like I've been thinking, am I doing this right? Should I like rework the way that I think about certain things? And part of it, the part of the reason I haven't been making normal Dater Lucum videos is because I was worried that it's like, should I feel obligated to make more videos the way that I've been making them? Like, this happens to everybody, and everyone has their own reasoning, and I really think it's a disservice to the community in general, and I'm saying like humanity in general, to assume somebody else's position, because they could just turn that around on you, and then no conversation is ever going to happen.
You did get a little bit in the ass with that one on Venaloid's video, but I think that was an exception. I think most of the time you're pretty spot on with the things that you address in your videos, so I wouldn't feel too badly about it.
I didn't care what the guy's religious beliefs were. I just addressed the things that he said.
Yeah, but you
I'll
needed
argue
the context.
with atheists. I don't care.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, GE, when are you going to interview Pat Robertson? Because I got to be there for that one. Rick Perry asked that in the comments section. But just so you guys know, Pat Robertson is my favorite Christian. Because he is on his way out of the world, I think. And he's just gotten to that point, the old people card, where you get the old people card, you can just say whatever the fuck you want. He has that, and he's doing that.
Well, now, okay, look, let's be clear. Ken Ham got Pat Robertson to be like, yo, bro, you're making us look bad. So, on one level, he's not as bad as Ken Ham. I'll give him that. But as far as interviewing him, I guess what Rick Perry means is the same kind of interview or same caliber that I interviewed Mike Huckabee with. And I think that would be a really good idea to do a video like that. So maybe sometime soon I can get some stuff put together. Lord knows he's got enough out there.
Has anyone even like watched the 700 Club? Because the few clips I've seen of it is just really freaking boring.
Yeah, no, it's garbage.
My stepmother-in-law does watch the 700 Club, so.
My grandparents keep it tuned to CBN at all times. That actually gets kind of creepy when the TV is just on playing and no one's in the room. Even when they're not in the room, it's on playing.
God's in the room.
Yeah, he's on the couch watching it from multiple perspectives. Let's see here. Alright. Do you like the movie called The Lost Boys? We're done with questions. There's no more questions. Assume the position. Alright, so now we're going to move into my favorite segment of Reason. The one, the only, hypocrite of the week! This week's hypocrite of the week is going to a pastor who was engaging in exorcisms on a woman, and while doing so, he sexually assaulted her multiple times, and not only that, but he supposedly defrauded her for over $5,000. We don't have a video for this, but I'm going to pull up the image while we talk about it here for a second. So let me get this image up, and then we'll go at it, so you guys can see it. So this guy, this Canadian pastor, Wayne Marlon Jones, has been charged after authorities said that he sexually assaulted a woman while performing exorcisms on her. Jones was also accused of defrauding the woman of more than $5,000 in money and property for his spiritual guidance.
All right. So one thing I have to say, okay? So first off, exorcisms, really? Like we're still doing this? But
It's
more
fucking
than that,
demons, bro.
no, more than that, I love that they had to include that. Like he was actually doing a legitimate service in addition to sexually assaulting this person. If I wrote this story, I would just say like a crazy person was sexually assaulting this girl. Like, why do they include the exorcism as if it's something that's actually doing something?
Because have you
It's
ever
like-
seen an exorcism?
No, it's basically like no, it's like saying, while I was telling the future, I stole like some candy. It's like, why do you include the other parts? That's not important. But yes, I know how exorcisms are done, and I'm surprised this is the first time it's come up in like popular media. Because like, if you're in that position of power, you have no qualms whatsoever, and you're just a small level of incredibly creepy. I'm not surprised that this happened, because this sort of situation attracts sick people.
Yeah, the question that immediately comes to mind for me is, how do they determine for an exorcist whether they're defrauding somebody of money or rendering services?
I also want to ask, is that part of the exorcism?
Well, I think that you're actually not supposed to charge for the exorcism. You're actually not supposed to charge for being a pastor. You're not supposed to make any money for it.
Are you supposed to sexually assault them?
Well, it depends. You know how
Does it
sometimes
really?
they use their hands, or they may use the Bible. Maybe he was using his penis.
Okay.
Holy Spirit!
So were the demons inside her vagina?
Yeah, and he had to like shove them out. Like get in there and class them.
Yeah, well, there's actually been multiple occurrences of this kind of thing happening. I remember a news story where a pastor was caught trying to convince people that his penis was filled with magical juice of some kind, and they had to suck it out. There was that one. And then, of course, there was the one, I believe he was an African pastor who actually got people to eat grass like cows. That's not sexual assault, but that's just general dumbassery. So it doesn't surprise me that he tried this with this young woman. I do have to say it doesn't really bode well on her part that she actually fell for it so much that she ended up giving $5,000 to him for spiritual guidance. And the fact that he was able to weasel his way in and actually get that far, I think is a little sad on the theist community as far as being gullible. And I also have to wonder if Klingenschmitt tried to bill Obama for his exorcism.
So I do want to say, like, this was a person that was, like, victimized. So I know we joke a lot about stuff on this show, but this is a crime, and this is terrible that this happened to this person.
Oh, no,
Gullible,
yeah.
it's a terrible
Absolutely.
situation.
No. Yeah, I was not trying to place any kind of blame on the victim at all. I want to make that clear. I wasn't trying to place the blame on her at all. I was just kind of commenting on the gullibility of theists in general, I guess. But I think that it's just horrible that people in positions like his, people in positions of trust and power, very often take advantage of those that put that trust and put that power in them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I know this happened in Canada, so they might have a little different way of dealing with this legally than we might in the U.S. here. And that's the interesting thing, is because Obviously, for this to have come to light, she obviously spoke to somebody. I don't know all the details if she brought the complaint or if she maybe was just talking to a friend or a family member, confiding in them, and they kind of, alerted the authorities to what was going on. Because obviously, if she was in this for a while, if it was over $5,000 in money and property, and you assume this would be going on for a while, and obviously she was buying it, so. But yeah, it's just interesting, I mean, how do you go about addressing that as far as exorcism? How do you know if it was legitimate or not? Do you check his ecto containment unit to see if he's got demons crawling around in there? I mean, how do you? I mean, it just kind of gets to the point of like the absurdity of this, like how do you have any way of dealing with this legally? I mean, so you're telling me there's a legal way that people can perform exorcisms? So what, they just can't take, they can't take any compensation for it, and then it's okay? Or how do you? I mean, it would be a service, right? You're helping somebody, but I don't know. It kind of gets to the point where it kind of demonstrates why this is so ridiculous. Why do we even allow this at all to go on? Why do we even give this any kind of respect as a legitimate service, or something that actually occurs? We just. If we could all just kind of get to the point where everybody just understands that this is just bullshit and that there's not demons, and if you actually are having some kind of problem, that you should probably be seeing like a psychologist or something and not a pastor, then we'd probably be a lot better off. So I mean, that's what I'm taking out of this, really.
I actually like when certain cases come up, not this one because someone was legitimately victimized, which is terrible. But when a case that comes up with like the power of prayer or something, I kind of like, I'm like, okay, let's hope this goes to court, because then the person will actually have to substantiate like what they were doing. And that, I love when that happens, because it forces it to either be a situation where they admit that it's completely faith-based, and then it just gets thrown out as an excuse, basically. Or they actually have to put restrictions on it, or actually they have to identify exactly what they were doing and show that it's bullshit. So
well, that's real easy. All he has to do is just say that the demon transferred from her to him, and then that explains all the sexual assault.
No, you see, that's the thing, is if this went to court, that won't be good enough. They would actually have to like bring the demon out so we can talk to it, substantiate what you're saying, or it's not allowed to be administered as evidence. Because a long time ago, we already ruled, like on a federal level, that you're not allowed to use spectral evidence as evidence. So,
well,
if
something
that's
tells
all
me it wouldn't be that hard for him to get another pastor to come into the courtroom and exorcise him right there in the courtroom. Okay, so to go back to the beginning where we talked about, we were asking why did they mention that he was doing an exorcism or multiple exorcisms on this lady? Why did they mention that when he sexually assaulted her? And as we said, we're not placing any blame on the victim, because obviously this pastor capitalized on the religion to sexually assault this woman and defraud her out of money and property. But I think it's important to note that I've witnessed a couple exorcisms at my church during a healing and deliverance service in the past, and there was some vomiting going on. There was some really freaky stuff going on, and I was just kind of like, hey, what is this shit? There was some real like, I'm a demon, like type shit going on. So I think that the point they're trying to make here is that he's really messed up. If he's sexually assaulting someone in that position where there may be vomit, there may be bodies thrashing, or perhaps levitating and crawling up walls and stuff like that, he has to be really deranged. And I would agree with that.
You have to be a special kind of deranged to have superpowers. No, the one thing that I kind of hope from this situation is that the person that was victimized will be able to like show that this is a situation that you should not be in. Because I think that's a nuance with these sort of situations that's really difficult to like convey without it become victim blaming. But I hope this was a learning experience, that one should not put themselves in a situation where, like, someone has that level of power over you.
Just to
Like
throw
that,
this out there,
that's a scary situation to be in, and I do not recommend it.
just to throw this out there, Brennan says, "I'm gonna let you finish this exorcism, but first I gotta answer this call." So
Anyway,
yeah. Anyway,
I do hope that she, like, thinks a lot more about this, and instead of going to an exorcist, goes to a psychologist, because especially after this experience, it would probably be very good for her.
maybe and maybe not, because I don't know if you're familiar with Leela Alcorn, but they supposedly took her to Christian psychiatrists and psychologists. And
No, I said a psychologist, not a crazy person.
I didn't think it was possible to obtain a PhD in psychology, or especially the clinical version of it, and still be able to maintain that rigidity of Christian doctrine. I didn't think that was possible.
You see, I've been to quite a few psychologists, psychiatrist people for depression related stuff, and, like, I think in the back of my head, I'm always really, like, worried that they'll be like, that I have to call them on, like, some religious bullshit. Because in that situation, I'm in a fairly, like, delicate state of mind. I'm here to seek help from somebody. And if they're just like, "Have you tried praying?" I'm like so ready. It's like, "Did you really just say that?" Guess who's never working again?
Yeah, a therapist who does that is, whatever their personal beliefs, if a therapist ever says that to you, they're a bad therapist. So find somebody else.
Yeah, so for defrauding this woman of over $5,000 in property and money, and also sexually assaulting her when you were supposed to be at her home exercising her while you charged her for your services, we're stamping you with Hypocrite of the Week, and I hope that you are dealt with severely for not only taking advantage of your position as a pastor, but to also emotionally and psychologically damage this woman, because she's already in a vulnerable state to believe that she has demons inside of her. Somehow you've convinced her of that, or she had convinced herself of that. And I didn't even mention, but the article says that it went on for over 2 years. So, either you really somehow convinced her of this, or she was really deluded herself. But either way, you need to be dealt with very severely just for the amount. I don't even think for the money involved, the money and property, but just for the sexual assault that is going to be so damaging that you've altered this woman's state of mind, especially emotionally, because she's going to be, I don't know, I mean, for 2 years, exorcisms over a 2-year period. I'm speechless with that. I'm baffled at how you can allow that to go on from May 2011 until May 2013.
I really hope that she gets the help that she needs, never gets in this situation again, and is able to grow from this experience. Because this is a terrible thing to happen to anybody, especially starting from that state of mind. And I hope that the guy is able to, like, I'm really hard set to actually want someone to be punished, because I don't think that really benefits anybody. But I do hope that he never does this ever again, learns from this experience, and becomes a productive member of society eventually.
Something tells me he's not going to, though. I mean, if he's the type of guy that's going to exercise someone over a 2-year period, sexually assaulting them along the way, and basically kind of having like a sugar mama deal going on where you get all this property and money, that he's either too far gone or he's abusing the position. But anyway, stamp this idiot with Hypocrite of the Week. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Aeolus, your host. You probably know me by now. I mean, this is like, what, the 19th episode or the 19th episode of Reason. So I'm pretty sure you know me by now. We wanted to give a warm welcome to Chad, the philosopher, is how I advertised him on social media, and welcome him and thank him for coming to the show. We're also going to go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsor, Atheist Box. It is a monthly subscription box designed just for you. Yes, you dirty heathen, you. You can head over to atheismbox.com and check it out. I think personally, it's a very great thing, and it's amazing that we have outlets like this. But anyway, I'm not going to talk your head off. You can watch my videos about the Atheist Box and opening the Atheist Box, the Atheist Box review. Check it out, because they're all about promoting positivity without bashing and trashing any religion, and that's something we can all stand behind. So special shout out to them. If you want to support us, the number one way to do it is to subscribe and share our videos and follow us on social media. But if you're the type of person that likes to go above and beyond and contribute monetarily, you should head over to patreon.com/reason. We have a lot of milestones over there, and, we're already doing philanthropy-related projects. Everything you see over there, we're already actively doing, and we're going to do it regardless. But, we can only take this thing so far for free. We'll be able to do more things, and we joke about this all the time, like getting Brendan some really good video editing software. Because, look, man, he can't make those good videos on Windows Movie Maker. Okay? It's just not going to happen. Like, we got to upgrade, okay? So head over there to patreon.com/reason, and don't forget to contribute if you can. But as I said, the number one way to do it is to share and subscribe. And we also have a website, which I'm going to try to get all the T-shirts back up next week over at thesecularroundtable.com. We'll have T-shirts like this up there, the Rational T. So you can go over there and check that out. I'll have them back up next week. With that being said, I'll turn it over to anyone else who wants to do an outro here.
Okay. I'm Data Lucum. I make videos where I debunk stuff, or I give my opinion on other stuff, or I give podcast stuff, which is actually just more of my opinion on stuff. People seem to like my canter or the way that I argue about things. If you like it, go to my channel. I'm also on Facebook and I guess technically on Twitter, though I barely do anything on there. I also have a podcast on Tuesdays called Godless Voices. This is the only time I'll mention it because this is about this show, and it's good stuff. Tuesdays, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Hey, what do you do again?
Godless Voices is pretty much me and a friend of mine go through, like, atheist or science-themed news things from the previous week. And we give our opinions. It's gotten pretty good. I think the best results we've had from a video was like almost 250 views, which isn't bad. So, it's fun. That's all I got. So, find me. It's easy. Goodbye.
I am the Godless Engineer. You can find me on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm actually more popular on Facebook, but, it's Facebook. I am also on Twitter and Instagram and all those nice places. I even have a website, godlessengineering.com. I have several groups. Just type in Godless Engineering into the Facebook search bar. You'll be able to find it there. Join our main group, and then look at some of our subgroups through the search bar and see if there's anything there you like. If I do general videos throughout the week, so go to youtube.com Godless Engineer, and you'll be able to see me act a fool.
All right, I am Brendan. I go by Prototype Atheist. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter mostly. I haven't been very active so far since the calendar turned over to 2015 as far as videos go, But I do have some ideas in mind, so I'm hoping to put those on film and get those out. I've been more active doing the Twitter thing and Facebook, kind of addressing people that way and trying to counter theists in that manner. But I do have plans for future videos, so stay tuned, and hopefully I'll be getting some more of those out in the near future. So that's it for me. I'll toss it over to Chad if he's got anything to say.
And we also just got Brendan up to 1,000 subs, so don't stop subscribing now just because we hit that milestone. Keep going, and I think Dieter, how many of you have Dieter? He's gone. Oh, he's back.
1345, I think.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Let's get him to 2,000. Let's everybody go up 1,000. How about that? Go ahead, Chad.
Yes, let's do that. I like that idea.
Right, I am Chad. You can find me on Twitter, where I'm most active at @exemplary_Chad. And I have some followers. I'm fairly active on that. Hopefully this isn't too out of place, my other endeavor and main hobby is tabletop role-playing gaming. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my podcast at exemplarydm.com. I also have written a book based on the podcast recently. You can find it on Amazon. It is called Exemplary DM Presents The Tome of Gadgets, and it is authored by me. So if you want to find any of that, look for Exemplary Chad, and you will surely find me. I look forward to communicating with you on the Twitter.
And we want to give a special shout out to everyone that asked a question tonight, and we hope that we answered it sufficiently, because we probably did, and we probably overkilled your question. And shout out to everybody on YouTube, and as always, don't forget to think skeptically and stay godless. Keep calm. It seems legit. Don't forget, Dieter's in labs and shit. And as always, thanks for watching.